So this episode is going to be without a guest. It's just going to be my thoughts on a topic that's kind of come up pretty recently and something that I get spoken about all the time. And I'm sitting here with an ice pack sitting on my leg because I've injured myself. And injury is something that comes up very, very often in conversations that I have. It's come up very often in my career as a professional sportsman. And with what happened to me last night, I thought I might as well share my thoughts on injury, my experiences with injury, and maybe some things that you can do in order to physically and mentally get over your injuries. So last night I was just training and was running into bowl and doing a normal session and I felt this twinge in my quad, and I know from experience, having done it before, that my quad had definitely had a slight tear in it. I reckon I caught it pretty early. I'm pretty good at understanding my body, so I knew when something was up, and if I'd pushed it that little bit further, then I probably would have done some serious damage. So the last 12, 18 hours since it's happened, I've been having it in ice. I've got my trusty compression trousers on, and shout out to Line Break because they are the best that I've ever had. I really enjoy these ones, but I've got ice on it on and off for 20 minutes for quite a while now, and I know I just got to shut down and make sure I don't do anything. And initially it was so frustrating because, like anyone that will have had an injury, and if you get injured, you'll know that straight away you start to think about what's going on in the future. For me, I had a game coming up this weekend. I know I have an important role to play in that game, and instantly I can't do that role, or at the moment it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do that role. And for me, with the goals that I'd set throughout the year, it's going to be harder for me to achieve those goals now that I'm injured, and that straight away brings this frustration, I guess anxiety as well, as to I'm not unsure what's going on, and some kind of a little bit of anger as well, because I do everything right in my training. I do everything to look after my body, and somehow it's let me down, and I've got injured. And you'll definitely resonate with that if you have an injury. But for me, it's this real constant battle sometimes with whether you're doing everything right, or are you doing too much right, or are you reducing the chances of getting injury with all the kind of finely tuning your body? Do you sometimes need to pull back on some things, add some things in, and you just start questioning, like, listening to that, there's just so many questions I'm asking myself. So this is just a fresh injury, and at the moment it's kind of raw emotion, and I'm dealing with it physically how I know I should, getting some ice on it, elevating it, not moving as much, so I'm not doing any of the exercise that I would normally do. I'm not stretching it because I know that I don't need to stretch it right now. I just need the inflammation to go down. So initially treating the injury, if you do get injured, is the first step you should be doing. But with that comes the mental frustrations and the mental side of it that comes with it. My history with injury is a long list. I mean, my professional career ended through me fracturing my spine at the age of 26, and that ended my professional career as a cricketer. But before that, I was getting muscle tears all the time. I think I've torn my right hamstring about 4 times, my left about 3. I've had side strains. I've got shoulder impingements. I've had multiple fractures in my spine, like I mentioned. I've had 2 knee operations, having had patellar tendinopathy on those. I've had ankle issues, and I think the list continuously goes on. And I know from the main thing for me is the soft tissue injuries, the structural injuries like the spine fractures, the knees. Those were things that built up over a long period of time, and I, especially the fractures, that just happened like straight away after like an accumulative amount of injury. And that was a long layoff, but the small little layoffs that you get through muscle tears and you get through sort of like joint issues, they can be really frustrating because it's just enough time to keep you out that you miss. So for me, I was missing competition, and I was missing an opportunity to go out and play and perform, and that is what's happening right now. And that's the frustration I do feel, because you want to be out there doing what you do and you want to be performing all the time, and you just can't. You have to rest and you have to hold back and you have to pretty much go straight back to zero and then build your way back up again. So I know the road that's coming up for what I've got to do. And it's a tiresome road, and it can be really, really, tough to take. But I think through my experience so far is I've learned that an injury is an opportunity. It's something your body is telling you to have a look at, something that you are unaware of. You may be doing everything right in the gym. You may be doing everything right on the training ground in competition, but there might be that one little thing that you aren't being aware of. And for me, I did that over last night and kind of thought, how have I done this, and how has this happened? And I know from studies that sleep and water are the two main sources of your recovery. They are the two most important things you're going to get for the body: sleep well and recover well. And I look at sleep especially because I know I haven't been getting enough sleep. I've been working on my business, and I've been working on coaching and mentoring and getting all of these things in order. And I've probably not been focusing on my own sleep too much. I've been running on a smaller amount of sleep, probably about 6 hours. And I looked at a study that was done, and it showed that if you were around 6 hours of sleep, that you had 75% chance, an increased chance of injury, compared to like 8 hours, which was around the 20% mark. So for me, I know I've been off on my sleep. I've not been paying attention to my sleep, and it's that thing that I've not been paying attention to that could have caused this injury. So I haven't been doing the right thing. So I will address that now, and I will look at improving that moving forward. But it's something that I wasn't aware of, or I was probably subconsciously aware of, but I just wasn't doing. I wasn't taking the time to go and do it, and I wasn't prioritizing it. So now I will prioritize it. I will hydrate myself, because again, if you improve your hydration in the cells of your body, then that's how they function optimally. I was dehydrated. Hydration for me is a real tough one. I'm in Australia at the moment. It's really, really hot here, and I'm sweating quite a lot in all the activity I do throughout the day. So I need to be taking care of my hydration. So if you have got injured and you've had an injury, sometimes you can look at what you're doing around the gym, on the training ground, and think, I'm doing everything right, I'm getting everything right. But sometimes it's even the things that you're doing back home. Are you recovering, and are you stretching enough? Are you just de-stressing your body and your mind enough to recover? And sleep and water are the top priorities there. And then you can start to add in things like yoga type movement for stretching. You can add in rehabilitation programs, rehab exercises that you potentially have to do, the managing injuries and things like that. So take a look at what it is that you're doing in the peripheries around your training, and see if there's something that you can address that might be causing more issues. With my past of my injuries, that was the amount of injuries that I was getting that were soft tissue injuries. That was the main reason why I took up yoga in the first place. I went from tearing a muscle every 3 months to adding yoga into my routine. I didn't change anything. I added yoga in. I'm not keen on the spiritual side of it. So at the time I wasn't doing meditation. I wasn't doing any sort of breathwork practice, but I just added the movement in because I'd heard that just simply stretching the muscles was going to improve my performance and my recovery. And I'd seen athletes that had done it in the past. So I added it in. I found an online yoga teacher that wasn't too spiritual, but I did have to cop it a little bit. I did have to accept that there was going to be a spiritual element to it. I thought yoga was for hippies. I thought it was for Buddhist monks and people over in India, and if not, it was for a lot of women who were ultra flexible, and it had a very feminine touch to it, I guess. So I didn't get into it straight away. It took me ages to finally address it and get into it. And once I did, I added it into my routine in private. I did it in comfort of my own home. But I instantly saw a result. I instantly saw that after probably about 2 months of adding it in, I just felt better in my performance. I was able to move more efficiently. I was waking up less sore, and my when I would start to think, or when I would start to get injuries, they just weren't cropping up. It was around about time periods, like I said, that 3-month period, I would usually get an injury and they just didn't happen. And then it took probably about another 18 months before I actually ended up getting my first soft tissue injury. And I got that through being struck on the thigh, and I had an actual like bruising of the thigh, and then I was going into a competition. So the leg was actually already damaged, essentially, through being struck by a ball. And then it just had another micro tear. And it wasn't even that big a tear, and I was out for about a week. So the improved quality of my tissues in my body actually helped me heal a little bit quicker. My recovery time from injury improved, as well as the rate of injuries. Like I said, I went from getting one every 3 months to not getting one in 18 months. And I saw a massive difference in my physicality. But right now, I've improved. I've then added things like breath work and meditation in to help look after my mind, so I wasn't getting overly emotional on the pitch, or I wasn't getting overly frustrated, and I'm able to manage my stress levels as much. It doesn't mean that I don't have bad days. It doesn't mean that I don't have days where I'm frustrated and I get angry or at myself, or sometimes even others, but I'm able to catch those moments very quickly through my practice of meditation and mindfulness, and I get to choose now of how I react. Sometimes you can get caught up in the emotion and you can just react out of nowhere. So last night was a good example of how I got instantly frustrated with my injury, and I caught myself feeling these emotions of anxiety, frustration, anger, and I was able to quickly think logically about what it was that was going on. And there was nothing. I think one important thing to remember when you get injured, it's out of your control by then. Like once you've injured yourself, it's out of your control. You can't change anything. You can't instantly make yourself better. Only time will heal you. But what you can do is make sure you do everything right from then on. So you can ice it. You can do, if you have a physio that you work with, speak to them and make sure you're doing all the precautions that are right straight away, and you can do them instantly. And doing those first few steps takes you doing those first few steps well takes you far, improves your recovery rate in which you can get back from your injury. So that kind of does, I hope that makes sense, because the speed at which you recover from your injuries is just so, it's improved by just the ability to do the right things early on. And with the mental side of it, it's a long old journey to come back sometimes, depending on the severity of your injury, and even the post, once you're fit again and you're ready, being able to be consistent in the changes that you made. It's very easy to slip back into old habits, and you can easily let old habits slip back in and probably get the same issues occur. I know I've done that in the past. So trying to make a plan post-injury is a important thing to do in order to improve your chances of not injuring yourself again. Make sure that if you are going to make a change, and you have made a change, that you stick to it, you stay consistent, you find a way to add it into your routine, your schedule, whatever it is that you're doing, so that you can manage it so it doesn't happen again. I think another thing to point out is when you do get injured, it can be very common that you get an injury elsewhere in the time sort of past that injury, because you're compensating in your body. So trying to stay as balanced in your body, so physically trying to stay as balanced in your body is an important thing. Making sure you take care of your entire body as a whole. Don't just focus on the injury itself. Focus on all of the other areas that are potentially compensating. So making sure that they're recovering, you're looking after the tissues, you're again getting water and sleep on board so that you can recover a lot faster. I've had a podcast with Tamal Mills in the past, and he had a lot of injuries. He's another fast bowler ex-teammate of mine, and he had spoken about how hard they are, and that we again had said that there are opportunities that present themselves within that period once you're injured. So look at your injury that you've got, take a look at what it is that you potentially could be working on, how you could be improving the things that you're doing, what can you tweak, not necessarily even in your training, but around your training, so that you can actually improve your chances of not getting injured. Or if anything, you improve the recovery time from when you do get injured, because if an injury does happen, all you want to do is get back better. So make sure that your training is good, your recovery is good, and your body starts to adapt. So as soon as you injure yourself, your body's ability to repair is much, much faster. And doing all these little things are going to allow you to get back on the field, get back into competition training as soon as you can, and you can be doing the things that you love. You can start to be going towards achieving your goals and going towards what it is that you've set out to do in the first place. It's an incredibly frustrating time when you get injured. I don't enjoy it at all, but I thought I'd do this podcast. It's a very short podcast compared to my others, and but I thought, just with the timing of what I've done and how it's come about, I thought I'd throw it out there. And I know injury is something that a lot of people struggle with and have had, and sometimes it's not even the physical scarring that it leaves. Sometimes it does leave mental scarring. So get in touch with me. You can find me on Instagram at The Sport Yogi. You can find me on my email, which is lewis@thesportyogi.com. I'd love to hear from you. What injuries have you had? What have you overcome? And sort of what are the lessons that you've learned from getting injured in the first place? And how have you changed moving forward? So I want to hear from you guys. As always, subscribe to the podcast. I'd love to hear ratings and reviews from you guys. See how you're getting on with the podcast. I've got some more interviews coming up with some amazing guests. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you. And if you're interested in adding things like yoga movement, breath work, meditation into your routine, you can head over to my online platform where you can subscribe to classes. There's also a free option, and that's thesportyogi.com. So yeah, this is a bit of a different podcast from me, but I thought I'd throw it out there. And if you are injured, keep going. Make sure you're doing the things right, and you're doing all the things that are moving you in the right direction. And good luck with that. And I'll see you again soon.